All right, we'll see what we get.
I call this meeting of the City of Umatilla Budget Committee to order at 7 p.m., April 16th, 2024. Roll call, please.
Counselor Funderburk.
Here.
Counselor Dufflock.
Is excused.
Counselor Katie McMillan.
Here.
Counselor Wheeler. Counselor Dennis McMillan.
Here.
Counselor Tenike.
Here.
Mayor Sipe.
Also excused.
Budget Committee Member Rick Cotterill.
Here.
Chair Bruce McLean.
Here.
Budget Committee Member Judy Simmons.
Here.
Budget Committee Member Brett Cahill.
Here.
Budget Committee Member Lyle Smith.
Is excused.
Budget Committee Member Josie Chavez. Here.
Pledge of allegiance.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 4, approval of the agenda. I accept the motion to approve the agenda for the budget committee meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve tonight's agenda.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, it's approved. Item number 5, election of chairperson. The floor is open for chairperson nomination approval.
I would like to ask if there is anyone present that has a burning desire to chair this budget meeting. Or is it this one or the next one? This one? So is there anyone here that wants to chair the budget meeting? I'm not seeing any hands waving. Next, I would like to ask if the chair is willing to continue on in this capacity.
I will happily continue on.
Then I would nominate Bruce McLean to chair this budget control or budget meeting process.
Yes, we have a nomination. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Do we need a second?
We need a,
I'll second.
thank you.
Have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. On to item number 6, public comment. No public comment. Item 7, consent agenda. Any discussion regarding minutes from April 18th, 2023 budget committee meeting?
You need a motion?
Yeah, that's just, but if we don't have any comment, I would accept the motion to approve the minutes for April 18th, 2023 budget committee meeting.
There's no comment? No. Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the minutes for April 18th, 2023 budget committee.
I have the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll take that.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. On to item number 8, public hearing on state revenue sharing.
I do have a question about the minutes. Is that from the March meeting? Because this is April 18th. Or is that the city council? I'm just confused because it has my name on there and I was like, wait, I wasn't.
April last year.
April last year.
Oh, I see. I was like, wait, I'm really confused about this. Okay, thank you.
Did that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Item 8, public hearing on state revenue sharing. I'd accept the motion to open the public hearing.
Chairman, I'd like to be open for the meeting.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Revenue sharing public hearing. Public hearing is now open for the purpose of considering the possible uses of state revenue sharing. The procedure I would like to follow tonight is this manner. A, report from staff. B, public testimony. C, committee comments or questions. D, close hearing. The staff report, please.
Yeah, I think it's the only uses.
Yes, please.
Okay, so the city receives several different revenue distributions from the state that are based on our certified population statistics that we have from Portland State University. This year, our population estimate is going up 3.8% or 289 people for a total of 7,810. We are required to hold this public hearing before the budget committee to discuss the revenues and give citizens the opportunity to comment on the use of those funds. From there, I'll prepare a resolution. The state doesn't assume we want their money. We have to prepare a resolution and tell them that we will accept it. So I'll briefly discuss those revenues. The first revenue sources all flow to the general fund. For liquor revenue, we receive 34% among the cities in Oregon. That is split two ways. The first one is split 20% on a per capita basis, solely based on population. For the upcoming year, we anticipate $21.24 per capita for a total allocation of $166,000. The other 14% is allocated based on a formula that factors in property taxes, population, and income. And for the upcoming year, we expect an allocation of $182,000. That's 6% higher than the previous year. And then the last fund that goes to the general fund is cigarette tax revenue. We only, as cities, receive 1.7% of the cigarette tax, and it's relatively low and declining as the use of tobacco products declines. So we anticipate that next year to remain relatively flat at about $5,500. And the only reason we're seeing that remain flat is because of the population increase. The per capita is actually going down. So the overall increase to the general fund next year is about $30,000. For the street fund, we have the highway fund gas tax revenues that flow there. Those have been increasing since 2017. When a new transportation package was passed, that included a 10-cent gas tax increase over a 7-year period. And the beginning of this year was the final year of that increase. We do receive about 16% of that revenue, and it will increase slightly from $603,000 to an anticipated allocation of $620,000 for the upcoming year. And that is all I've got for you.
At this point, persons who wish to testify, identify yourself. Please give your name and address for the record. Seeing none, are there any committee comments or questions? Seeing none, if there's no further testimony, the public hearing is now closed.
Motion to
Motion. Accept the motion to close public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we close public hearing.
We have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? On to item number 9, new business. 9.1, presentation of the fiscal year 2024-25 budget.
Thank you, Chair. Well, we have a big budget once again this year, and I'll go through. I'm not going to read the message that I prepared, but I will kind of go through a little by little because there are some really fantastic things to highlight. So our budget is increasing by a little more than $58 million this year, but that's almost exclusively from infrastructure projects, mostly in partnership with Amazon. So at least $40 million of that is associated with our point of diversion project, where we're building a new point of diversion in the Columbia River to meet multiple goals of the city. That helps us start to implement our water master plan as we slowly move from groundwater to surface water as our primary water source for the city. That process is going to take about 10 years, but we will initially start with our industrial customers, and that's also a partnership with Confederated Tribes. There are more than 8 CFS. Water will go through those pipelines and meet their partnerships with Bonneville Power and others in their development of the Wanakit wetlands there in the south. So there's a lot of great projects and work going on there with that. We also have investments into, this will be the beginning of our Hash Park Sports Complex, which many are really excited about. We need to get this engineering at least completed by this fall so that we can start. If we have a set of plans and we funded the design, we're far more likely to be funded for that. That will be 4 new baseball fields, 2 new soccer fields, and several other improvements there at that park. So this gets that started. We also start with some carry forward our other improvements like our marina improvements, our Nugent Park, and so on. So there's a lot of other terrific, great capital improvements that are in here. One of the things that's really interesting in this budget, just over 5% of our total budget is going to personnel costs. So across all funds, across everything that's there, only 5%. So what that means is quite literally with every dollar that's coming in is being reinvested directly back into the community, into these infrastructure projects and these quality of life improvements as well. I wanted to take time to be sure to express my gratitude and to highlight here just how much we appreciate the input from the community, from our volunteers on this budget committee, from our elected officials. And once again, just highlight how lucky we are to have more than 10 years experience and a CPA with Melissa as our finance director. Every year we have clean audit. Every year for the last several years, we received the Government Finance Officers Association's Distinguished Budget Award. These are big deals. These are big things. And I just can't express how lucky we are and how much I appreciate her and her hard work and her department staff supporting that work and efforts. It makes so much easier to go through all of this. A couple other highlights as we go through here. If we continue to experience significant historical growth. We're the second fastest growing city in all of Oregon for those cities between 5,000 and 10,000 population, second only to Junction City, which if you're not familiar is a suburb of Eugene, which is like the second largest city in the state. So considering that we don't have a suburb of a town of over 225,000 people, we're the suburb, if you want to call that, of a town of 21,000 people. To be the second fastest growing in that range is highly significant at 3.8% population growth last year. If that were to continue year over year, it would be a 38% population growth over the course of the decade from 2020 through 2030. And we are on that trajectory to have over 30% population growth in this decade. So with that growth, we need to stand ready and prepared to do that. And I think with the council goals that adopted from the efforts that we've worked through this budget committee, through our Parks and Recreation Committee, through our Planning Commission and our other committees, through our Library Advisory Committee, we've been able to put together this proposed budget to meet those needs. And so we continue to fund projects here to meet our small businesses here and to revitalize our downtown with our downtown facade grant. Our local business grant programs are still very well funded. We continue to invest and partner with AWS. As I mentioned before, there are significant programs, our significant investment into our infrastructure this year, and we receive Enterprise Zone Strategic Investment Program funds from them. Housing is sort of the name of the game throughout the state, and Umatilla is no different. We have adopted goals to create housing at every economic level, provide investment and/or incentives to those levels of housing that are not being developed by the private sector. And we are to earnestly pursue housing development partnerships with private developers and nonprofits that provide low-income housing. So we've worked with, we're one of 8 pilot programs in the state that received House Bill 4123 funding, which was $1 million, and that's the 4 Umatilla, Western Umatilla cities and Umatilla County. And so I say Echo, Stanfield, Hermiston, Umatilla, and Umatilla County. We've also added Boardman and Irrigan as well to that. We've been able to take that $1 million and we've leveraged an additional $1.7 million for that. So a total of $2.7 million in funding. This proposed budget gets us funding through the rest of this fiscal year, and then we don't have any other funding for that program at the moment identified. The good news is that even in this last short session of the legislature, they approved, I think it was just under $200 million to go towards infrastructure for that will create housing. And so we've submitted surveys to the League of Oregon Cities in partnership with the Association of Oregon Counties and the state legislative committees on housing. And we made a presentation just yesterday which was unbelievably well received, and our ability to leverage these dollars and the programs that we've created are quite substantial. Even though we haven't moved into our full facility yet, just what we've been able to achieve in our temporary facility has been applauded and recognized at the state level. So we're continuing to work through those programs. You've had in front of council, groups like Hacienda has come and presented about low-income housing. We have 2 other groups we're working with now. They'll be coming through in the next couple months, also making similar presentations. So we're working with low-income providers. And of course, we have new housing development up in Southville, homes anywhere from about $235,000 to $500,000 are being developed up there. So we are trying to meet those housing needs at each and every economic level. Our assessed value went up a lot as we expected. We're now over $1 billion citywide in assessed value, 11% increase from the prior year. Our city's budget this year, this proposed budget, is $179.8 million. As we mentioned, most of that is capital improvements. Just 6 years ago, that was a $9 million budget. So what's that?
12 years.
12 years ago, sorry. Yeah, I even said 12. I don't know where it got 6. So 12 years ago we were at 9. So we've come a long way. Now we'll be completing a lot of these projects, and so these numbers should be going down in the next fiscal year budget. Our FTEs increased from 39.25 to 71.77 in that same time frame. Let's see. We're excited to finally get through the Federal Economic Development Administration's process, and we've got preliminary approvals on all of our bid documents at this point. We anticipate going out to bid for that project within the next 6 weeks, and expect to see construction on that begin towards the end of summer. And we continue to do work on our marina and on our point of diversion and improvements throughout the rest of the city with playgrounds, pavilions, pedestrian bridge, trail projects. There's just a lot that we're investing in through this time. One of the bigger ones as well is we're continuing to invest in water. Water is going to be the core and the key of our ability to be able to expand and keep up with the growth that's here. We have 23 CFS in the McNary Pool of the Columbia River. We currently own 1.68 CFS or cubic feet per second of water right in the John Day Pool. So that's below McNary Dam. And we are in the middle of procuring an additional roughly 5.5 CFS. So to get us to 7 CFS total water right in the John Day Pool. So 30 combined. 1 CFS is approximately 600,000 gallons of water a day. So at 30, you can do the math. Probably better than I can. So 600,000 times 30, it's a lot of water to be able to meet the demand that we have. The city sits on, if you didn't know, we sit on the LAGWAMA subcommittee, and our water master plan is being implemented in partnership with with all those areas here that are in critical groundwater. And so I mentioned a little bit earlier, this plan has a lot of projects in here that will help us transition from using critical groundwater and transitioning to surface water. That's one piece of a 100-piece puzzle. We have other partners like the county that are investing in recharge, which will substantially help support the aquifers and address our nitrate issue. We have other operational issues in partnership in the region with farmers and with industrial users as well, whether it's water reuse or pre-treatment before water goes out. So we are doing our part, and we're sitting in on those committees' efforts, moving that forward. Reserves are always a topic that's, and rightfully so, should be a substantial point of interest. Happy to say that our general fund reserves, though we're not quite at 20%, this budget keeps them steady, just under 18%. We're at 17.8% this year, but that's over $600,000 increase. So even though the percentage is staying flat, the dollar amount is going up. The water fund reserves are down a little from 8.6 to 7 from the previous year, while the sewer reserves are up to over 20% from 16.8 to 20%. So we still have some work to do in our water fund to continue to build up those reserves, but we've invested a lot in water recently, which is why those are down. Debt is a big part of how we're going to move forward here. Since we've paid off our city hall loan, we look forward as to what we will invest in as we grow. And so a new police department building it's not really like we're replacing city hall for the police, but we have the ability to take on strategic and well-managed and calculated debts. And that's where we're looking to invest now. So our current house of our police department has had several responsibilities and roles in supporting the city over the decades, and it's lived its useful life. So we will make that replacement moving forward here. We'll get the design funds completed and hopefully be able to be starting construction right about the end of the fiscal year into the next fiscal year. Let's see. Other than that, we have, I'm not going to take up word for word to go through it all there, but I wanted to just focus on some of these other partnerships. It just, again, with our community development block grant, that fund is going to take water again as we continue to address the water issues here, both on the municipal level and even on the private level for wells. That program will take 2 residents in the Power City area and the Brownell area. We'll give them the options to connect to both city water and sewer. Many of those wells and septic systems are failing in those areas. We are not forcing annexation. They will be able to connect to that system. And then there's an incentive. It's cheaper if you're inside this, if you annex into the city than if you don't. But as we know from environmental health, they've said once those wells fail, they won't be allowed to punch new wells. And so the option will be available to them there. That is a substantial investment and gets us that much closer to PATH, which that's our weakest link at our PATH facility, is that we are on a well and on septic system there. And so that limits the total number of beds that we can have at that facility and the total number of individuals that can participate in the transitional housing program or the ISUs, the individual shelter units. So hopefully this will get us that much closer and be able to move forward. And then we continue to invest in our expansion of our recreation programs, parks and city sponsored events. We have continued to see a steady increase in those over the last several years, and we'll continue to invest in our events like landing days, rock the locks, and some of our other events that we have throughout the year. We support several other things like our Waterpalooza event and our night out with the police department and so on. Some of those things range from very small budgets of maybe $1,000 to very large budgets that we have in here with Rock the Locks, which is a $2.2 million event. The hope as we continue to invest in these community festivals and events and general community outreach is that there's economic benefits and other benefits that come to the community for that. So, and then just to summarize here, we got a lot going on. There's a lot to summarize in a 47-page proposed budget document that you had for the full spreadsheets and numbers. We are happy to go into each one of those individually with any questions you might have. As we move on to the next section here in our meeting, we'll be able to talk more specifically about what things were funded that were initially talked about and what things we had to either partially fund or some things that we weren't able to fund at all. But just wanted to just pass along this message that once again, we have been blessed by both good fortune and then hard work and sweat and been able to leverage a lot of that good fortune that's come our way. And that's my message I have for you.
Thank you, Nick. Item 9.2, discussion of proposed budget document.
Yeah, so I sent out last week the proposed budget document along with a couple new things we did this year. The proposed document did include for you a proposed budget summary, both by fund and then also by revenue and expenditure type, which is something a little bit different this year. I also in the email highlighted the main larger items that were not funded or partially funded. So I can just highlight those again for a moment. In the police department requests for the vehicles, rather than funding the 4 requested vehicles, we funded 1 Durango and the detective vehicle. For recreation, we funded the open trailer, but did not fund the truck or the enclosed trailer this year. For the golf course, we funded 1 set of the reel swaps instead of 3, and we funded 6 golf carts rather than 12. And then based on the discussion that we had at the last meeting, we decided to fund a beverage cart rather than the utility cart for the upcoming year. And when it came down to balancing, this was a little tricky. This is the first time in a couple of years where we actually had about $2 million that we had to figure out between general fund and capital reserve, which made it really sad that our build out forecast didn't pan the way it would, because we would have pretty much exactly balanced. So when we started looking at some of our larger dollar items that we thought we could defer, there was the recreational shooting range to defer because we haven't even identified a location yet. So the likelihood of starting that construction next year is unlikely. In the planning department, there were several large consulting line items, and the ones that Brandon felt like we could defer, the public transit and the public art plan, could wait until the following year. The land acquisition line item is substantially decreased this year to defer building a house near the golf course, and then also just reducing the amount available for other property acquisition. In IT, we deferred the request for reader board additions on both ends of town because that was a couple $100,000. And then our copy machine, although scheduled for replacement, is still functioning fine, so we deferred that for a year. And then as far as staff requests, we did fund the conversion of a part-time library aide to a full-time library aide, but we just did a conversion rather than adding a full FTE. So we did not, in the proposed budget, fund the Public Works office clerk, and no FTE overall change for Parks and Rec.
So in the past, we've walked through the budget document.
Mhm.
Would you like to do that this evening, or would you rather, answer questions and jump all over the place, which will undoubtedly be how the
Okay.
questions work?
I guess we can probably, I sent it out. Several of you have already asked me questions as you've had them. I don't know that we really need to go page by page. That's kind of time consuming if there aren't questions. So I think the easiest thing is just to have you ask and we can jump around as needed.
Sounds great. Questions?
What, I don't know if I need to ask that. What did we end up doing on the requested vehicles for the various departments and, also the pencil that was requested? What happened on that?
So for the police department, they had requested 4. The Tesla didn't get funded and one Durango did not get funded. The Public Works F-150s that were requested to replace vehicles that blew up this past year, those were all funded. But the additional truck for the recreation department was not funded. And then the building vehicles were funded as the building department was swimming in money with limited ways to use it.
Quiet crew.
I talked a lot at the last meeting.
So it's not really a budget thing, but just some thoughts that I've come across over time. Would it be, I hate to come up with one more ask that takes staff time, but would it be possible to put together like a half-page, a one sheet of highlights of the Umatilla budget for budget committee members and council members to have as talking points?
We can create whatever you'd like. So it sounds like each year what takes up a lot of our discussion time is vehicles are a lot, which make a lot of sense because we need vehicles. They're a very necessary tool in every department. And so we could certainly highlight those, the ins, the outs, what we anticipate being surplus buying and replacing. We could do that. We have, and then capital projects in general. So vehicles are capital outlay. So capital outlay and capital projects seem to be big talking points.
Fitting that into one page could be.
Yeah.
Well, it's a great big ask and it would be difficult to arrange. I just think, from my perspective,
Yeah.
I occasionally get asked questions and hey, I've got a full-time job and it's like, okay, I know I should know this answer and I've probably heard this answer.
Yeah.
But when I'm asked sitting in a restaurant in town, it's like,
Mhm.
okay, it's blank.
Yeah, you want the Reader's Digest version, the Cliff Notes version, right?
Yeah.
So we can, we certainly can produce I don't know if we can do it in one, but a 2 to 3 page Cliff Notes of the budget. I think that's great. That's a lot of times in any big document, it's called the executive summary. We can do that.
I guess I'd like us to think about doing that. in the
I think it's a
future.
great suggestion, Bruce. I like that a lot.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah.
Come on, Ashley.
Any calls lately? All my questions have been answered.
I guess I got a question. It's really kind of a silly one, but what's the least thing we have with the Benton PUD? It's like a small charge. It's only like 3,000 something, but what is that?
Pretty sure that's a cell tower lease.
It is.
Oh,
Yeah. So we get calls all the time, by the way, people that want to buy our communication towers or ones that we either lease out or whatever, and they usually come with big dollar amounts or something. But for us, those are invaluable to keep in our inventory and be able to manage so that we can have proper communications and that we can control the operations of those pieces of infrastructure.
So you know, I'm like on reserves. Yeah, I'm obligated.
Sure.
So I absolutely get that we're actually in pretty darn good shape comparing other local communities. Everybody, you know, dollars are getting stretched without a doubt. And after talking with, with you, Dave, and you, Melissa, it's like, okay, I'm much more willing to accept that we've, the pure dollars in our reserves are increasing, even though we're underperforming at a percentage level. And it's like, look, I just still want to get in there on an annual basis. I mean, Scott is the great teacher for a dollar doesn't go as far as it used to. And somewhere down the road, we're going to want a 20% reserve in all our funds. And I know you guys are looking at it. I just want to continue to throw the marker out there that, it's easy to turn around and say, hey, we've got more money, but money just doesn't go as far. So it's like, okay, this is one of those few places where we probably really should be paying attention to the percentage rather than the dollars in the end.
Agreed. So last year we budgeted about 15.5 million in reserves, and this year we're at 20 million. So we definitely are taking that lightly. I mean, the dollars are going up. We're not necessarily percentage wise where we wanted to be for all funds. The water one has definitely been our biggest challenge.
Yeah, I'd say this year, the fund that is definitely in the yellow is the water fund
And the street.
and the street fund. So then it's a delicate balance because the revenue that comes for water is a fee structure. So it's a it's a special revenue fund. So the only way we get reserves up is either find a way to get more money, increase rates, or find a way to cut costs. And right now we haven't added FTE in the water department in a long time. So, and we can tell across all funds, our personnel is actually quite low. And so I mean, we did spend down a lot back in 2019 as we did water improvements along 6th Street, and we needed it for cash match requirements for some of these other grants that we've received. But yeah, completely agree. One of the things that's beneficial, healthy reserve, not only is it prudent, which the state requires a 5% prudent person reserve in the general fund. And so we're right around 18%. We're over 3 times the minimum requirement. But in years like this, when interest rates are high, more money in reserves, we definitely saw more in interest revenue that came to the city, particularly in the general fund, than we've seen in the past. So there is a lot of that. When we bring the initial budget and we bring these proposed budgets, it continues to be that balance of, money in the bank is prudent and it's good for the rainy day and that sort of thing. But it's always cheaper to build today than tomorrow. And so the best time to invest is right now. And so, yeah, the 20% goal that council's adopted and staff fully supports, and so does this committee, that's definitely the goal. And so right now we're teetering just above or just below on some of those, but yeah, the water fund and the road fund definitely are places of concern.
20% was much easier to get when you had a $3 billion general fund than it is now, for sure.
Yeah. That's a really tough one. I mean, in your comments, you said, well, that's conundrum and, absolutely recognizable where it's like, even I sit here and look at you and say, yeah, I want 20% of reserves, but don't make me pick, a reserve fund over a project that makes sense today.
Right.
It's like, I'll pick the project that makes sense today.
Yeah.
Funds and water funds or sewer funds aren't sexy ones, it's the parks and the stuff you can see visibly that always make great sense, so, but the infrastructure, that was a tough thing. If I could just kind of add on, I've had conversations with folks that don't quite understand, why do we need so much in reserve? And that's taxpayer money that why aren't we using it? Well, I know in my personal finances, that's how my personal finance have gotten the best is having, some money stashed away. So it just, to me, it's prudent for us to continue while we are in feast mode, if you will, because a day could come very soon when our conversations are far, far different. And the work that we do today to prepare is going to pay huge dividends when eventually things start to change. So anyway, I just in support, and unfortunately some people don't quite understand what it is that we're trying to accomplish, but in a nutshell, that's it. We've got to plan for the future and don't spend everything you've got today because we're gonna need it now. So.
Any others down here? Well, looks like we've kind of gone through questions at this stage of the game, so I guess I'll take the step and say I either accept the motion to approve, or pardon me, but accept the motion to approve the budget for 2024-25.
Chairman, I'd like to make a proposal to approve anyway the budget for the 24-25 year.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a motion, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the proposed budget passes. I would ask the committee, I made some comments a year ago in a prepared form, and I guess I would ask whether people thought that was appropriate or not. If they, if they thought that was appropriate, I've got this year's teed up and ready to go. And if people didn't like it, we can move on. Okay, I can almost copy my remarks from a year ago. I want to make a specific comment that I cannot imagine sorting through the budget document, what the budget document has become over the past few years without the guidance of city council goals. I, for one, think setting and updating city council goals is one of the most important things city council is doing. Once again, the staff of the city has done a difficult job putting together a budget document that balances competing priorities. We also see that we just can't do everything at one time. Of course, Dave and Melissa need to be pointed out for their hard work and leadership through the budget process. The department heads all need to be complimented on their teamwork, continuing awareness, and ability to separate needs from wants. A very sincere thank you all to all of the city staff. On another note, I suspect that everyone at this table hears the quote, "The city is spending a lot of money." We've spent a goodly amount of time between the budget workshop and working through the proposed budget document tonight, going through the whats and whys of the reasons why the city is spending money in this fashion. Once again, compared to the alternative of a shrinking budget and no discretionary money, I would rather be in this position. Prosperous times lead to additional scrutiny. Although potentially troublesome, this is fundamentally a good thing. Additional public involvement is a good thing. It's part of the budget committee's responsibility to seek out alternative points of view regarding spending priorities, and it provides an opportunity to show what the city is doing. It's a gift to be in the position to be able to help and partner with other local communities to help provide community services over a larger area. We continue to have a unique opportunity to be able to show residents the value of living in a pro-business, growth-minded community. Maintaining a balance of affordable, safe community that provides basic services and takes advantage of our economic good fortune to look to the future and provide opportunities and growth we would otherwise not have remains crucial to be able to show residents what the city can do.
Wow.
With that, we will move on to 9.3, affirmation of taxes. And we will finish the business of tonight with this one. So I would accept the motion to approve the affirmation of taxes at the rate of $2.9191 per thousand of taxable value.
Is there any discussion prior to a motion or an explanation or anything like that?
Yeah, I can give one. So every year we have to affirm our property tax rate as part of the annual budget process. Measure 50 in 1997 froze our tax rate to the permanent rate of 2.9191. So we don't really have any choice to change it. We're not increasing tax to offset expenses. And then we don't have any additional bond issuances outstanding right now that would require us to levy additional tax.
That's limited on the top end now, or is there any space?
We are not in compression yet, I don't think.
Can you explain to the group how 2.9191 compares to communities in our surrounding area?
Yeah, so I know, I believe Hermiston is over $6 per
Melissa, can you
thousand
speak
at
up,
this point.
please?
Grab the
Thank you.
mic.
Sorry, I keep getting poor.
You bet.
Yeah, you're fine. So the city of Hermiston is over $6 per thousand for their property tax rates. And in combination with all of their other taxing districts, they're actually in what is called compression, which is when those taxes exceed $10 per thousand. Excluding education, then they limit that at $10, and then each jurisdiction receives a reduced rate based on their percentage of the tax levy. And that's what Bruce was asking, or have we hit that $10 ceiling? And no, I don't believe we have. For us, Umatilla is the city is very similar to Umatilla County. We have almost identical tax rates.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question. Good.
If there's no other discussion, I'll make a motion to approve new business item 9.3, affirmation of taxes. A motion to affirm the tax rate for the city of Umatilla at 2.9191 per 1,000 taxable value.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I hate property taxes, but I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That ends the business other than item 10. I would accept the motion to adjourn the budget committee.
Mr. Chairman, I would, move to adjourn tonight's budget meeting.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That concludes the meeting. Thank you all.
Hey Nancy, can you strike that brain part I had off?
No, I want you to put like.
He already said, yeah. Getting out of there. Just say there's like a loss of audio.
I think there was a lot of audio.
Just, yeah.